Do you avoid difficult conversations? Most of us dislike and avoid confrontation, but we all need to learn how to communicate, especially when serious issues need to be resolved. This is such an important topic and one we all need help with. So we wanted to do an episode on the best-selling book on difficult conversations. Crucial Conversations: Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. Do we recommend this book? Stay tuned for part one of our discussion.
Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place where Christian single women aged 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started.
Welcome, sisters, to this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, the only podcast specifically for single Christian women over 50. Today, we give a shout out to our sisters in the Philippines. Thank you for listening. How many of us would say, yeah, I'm not good with confrontation? Yeah, I avoid it. Yeah, I'm not good at having difficult conversations. Yeah, I'm not quick at thinking on my feet, or I lose my temper, or I just run away, or I don't stand up for myself. Usually we're in one of those camps, and it's an important skill to have. In fact, I just put this Facebook post up from Dr. Henry Cloud about why we should learn how to have a confrontation with someone. It's an important skill and not to be afraid of it. And with that in mind, we decided, hey, we're going to do an episode on the book Crucial Conversations: Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. But this is the second or third attempt that Janine and I have done to do this episode, because every time we've gone and looked at this book, we've uncovered some problems. Yet it's such an important topic. We just don't want to just drop it. And also, this book is a bestseller. With some of the very serious concerns we have about it, it would not be right for us to not say anything. And it's very hard to find any actual criticisms of some of the things that, or at least one of the important things in this book that are really wrong. So today, we're just going to be authentic and and try and bring our thoughts as best we can on this book and on the topic of crucial conversations and why they are important and why it is important for us to learn how to have them. So with that, Janine, take it away. Tell us how you came across this book.
Okay, Crucial Conversations: Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High was written by Terry Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, and L. Switzler. The book is the second edition, which was written, the publishing date is 2012. And so I was given the book by a friend of mine who was actually taking a leadership course. She's in a leadership role. And she said, "Hey, why don't you have a look at this book and tell me what you think?" Ellie and I waded through chapter sort of by chapter, and I read the book. Ooh, it was a while ago, and like Ellie said, there was some concerns about some of the things that were some of the things that were written in the book, and so I just wanted to sort of tell you where the background came from and how we actually started it. I think we should just dive right into chapter one and just do a sort of a chapter by chapter review. And Ellie will just pipe in as she sees fit, and then we'll explain some of the things where there were some challenges. How's that, Ellie?
Sounds good.
Okay. So, chapter one starts off with like what exactly is a crucial conversation, and the authors note that it's about high stakes and emotionally charged conversations. The crucial conversation is something that you know has to take place. It's something that you want to confront. It's something that you really should be doing. It can happen in any kind of a situation, whether that's with your family or at work or in relationships, in your marriage, or I suppose in your friendships. Most importantly, people need to apparently learn how to do this properly. So, this book is going to give you some insight as to that.
I would just say that I listened to the third edition on Spotify,
Right.
and they did revise it, so it is a little bit longer, but we will, with some of the issues that we're going to address, we're going to talk about what some revisions were. Anyway, I struggled to listen to the book because I felt like the first so many chapters were just repeating over and over again that there's crucial conversations that you need to have and you need to have these skills. It just got repeated over and over again. So that's kind of where I was. And I think in a way it kind of made me, I don't know if I would say space out or blank out, or my mind definitely drifted, did not keep my attention. So that's what I'll have to say about the first chapters of the book.
Okay. Okay. Well, in chapter two, they talk about mastering the crucial conversations, which is basically what the book is about. And I believe that there was something where people were complaining about the book, as I remember reading about that, that it just sort of went over and over the same thing again and didn't really get to any of the good stuff until toward the end. And so I think your point is well taken there. In Mastering Crucial Conversations number two, they talk about chapter two, sorry, they talk about the fool's choice. And the fool's choice is when you enter into a conversation and you're thinking that you either have to lose the argument or else you have to keep peace with the relationship. The fool's choice is it's a lose-lose situation and you don't have to really think about it that way. What you have to do is go into it feeling that it can be I guess a win-win situation whereby you can speak up and be clearly heard and then have a feeling of where people are mutually agreeing on something and that things will work out well. So that's basically that's talking about there. I think it's true that we can offer our own opinions and we come to the table with differing ideas and differing perceptions of the challenge that's at hand. I like the idea of the pool of shared meaning where you're trying to find a point to mutually agree on and as you're sort of talking about your side of the argument, so to speak, or your side of things. So that was interesting. It reiterates in that chapter too that you have to speak up, that it's a good idea to do that. And the quote is no action is an action. And I think that's where many of us tend to just run away. We just tend to not confront that. Not making a decision is making a decision. And
Yeah,
I think that in
I would
itself
agree
is
with
a
that.
good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chapter three is start with heart. The main premise of this chapter is that you're not in it to win, you're in it to come to a mutual understanding and have a mutual goal going forward, and then being able to solve that problem together and to have the ability to control your emotion enough to come to a agreed goal or ending. Yeah. What do you think of that, Ellie?
This is more of a generalization again, is that the book seemed like, and of course, everything I'm saying is just my opinion,
Yep.
is that it was like Christianity 101 in
Mm.
that all the advice they're giving you, and they're trying to prep you to get into a mindset of basically the golden rule of treating people the way you want to be treated, giving them the benefit of the doubt, trying to, can't we all get along, attitude, and to not, I don't know that it's come up yet because I don't remember the chapters again, not villainizing the
Mm.
person, looking at their behavior and not just immediately thinking they're a terrible person and realize that you don't know everything that they're going through. Okay, this is just like Christianity 101, right? We know
Mhm.
that. The people who wrote it, they're from Utah, so I think they're probably Mormon, and that it probably is kind of their, though I'm not saying Mormons are Christians. They have Christ in their religion, but and they have the Bible as part of their scriptures. So I'm just thinking that's where they're coming from, that moral idea.
Mm.
So I think for the Christian, it was kind of like, this is a duh.
Oh, okay. Well, one thing I did sort of like in the chapter was it talks about how you have a conversation and you can see your point of view, their point of view, and you sort of step outside and you're watching the conversation take place, and you're some sort of being out here on the periphery going, how does this really look from all angles? And I used to think that that was difficult, if not a little bit challenging to do that. But I think that you can train your brain to sort of to do that, to try to take a step back and look at it from both points of view. But it takes some training. And so I thought that was interesting when they started talking about how you can take a look at it from a different, or so the third perspective. That was interesting. But moving on to chapter 4, learning to look. This chapter is about knowing when there's safety in a conversation, or knowing when safety in a conversation is at risk, and watching out for those problems where people might go into a flight or fight mode. And as you're sort of watching body language, watching the language that they're using, those sort of things, what to look for when you may not be getting what you really need out of the conversation. So you have to be in tune with all your senses as well when you're having that conversation. And then in chapter 4, there's also in the book a little test that sort of outlines how you react under stress. And that's a really interesting piece there as well. Yeah, it's something that you might want to take a look at and kind of find out how you do. And you have to be really honest in the test, I think, for the answer to be correct, just like in any kind of testing you're going to do. So there you go. Okay, so opposed to that, anything there? No.
Well, so the next chapter 4 and chapter 5,
Hmm.
and of course, I don't have these memorized. There's a number of reviews that Janine and I have looked at and referring to, and there will be links to those in the show notes because there's just no way that we can. Personally don't even have a print copy. I listened to the last edition, I believe the last edition. So we're kind of referring to some of these articles for help in going over these. So I don't have a book that I'm even looking at. But as far as I can tell, chapter 4 and chapter 5 are about safety, and that's also another real issue that I have. I'm actually like chomping at the bit here. So honestly, I'm kind of like, so sorry, audience, is that I have some things that I feel very strongly about in this book, but I don't want to necessarily say anything right now because I guess I'd like if we do say there are some good things in this book. There are some good things, but some of the bad things are just really some of the criticisms, not only from us, but the few that we were able to read online, I think are very valid. And actually, one of them is about safety, that they give very unsafe advice to you. So, chapter 4 and 5 being about safety, yeah, I have some criticisms, but I just don't know if I should give them right now or I'll wait till we move further in. Maybe Janine, right now, just talk about the things that are positive.
Sure.
And then we'll
Okay.
go
How
back and
about, how about we do that?
save the
Okay.
issues we have. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. In chapter 5, they outline don't play games, get to the point, be honest, and make sure that both parties, or whatever number of parties you're in conversation with, try to make them feel as comfortable and as heard as possible. Just maintain a respectful countenance and be respectful with your words. Be humble and truly value others' input. And I think also offer an apology when it's appropriate. I mean, and that can happen. I've often been in professional places where people need to step back and apologize for things that they've done. And I think an apology in a crucial conversation can help because you have to build trust in some way. And if you can't accept what you've done, then you won't be trusted. And there is an acronym here, how to create a mutual purpose, and it's CRIB. The acronym is commit to seeking a mutual purpose, recognize the purpose behind the strategy, invent a mutual purpose, and brainstorm new strategies. And you can read for yourself there how in the book, if you decide to pick it up, how those sort of things work together. But basically, you need a sense of mutual purpose and strategies to get to a conclusion or to the goal that you're working on together. And you can obviously listen to other people who may have a different perspective and bring their own brainstorming new strategies together can be helpful if you have a problem which can be solved. Sometimes in those crucial conversations, you may be able to have some time and purpose to listen to others and what they have to bring. So in chapter 6, that is entitled Master My Stories. The big thing here is just don't let those emotions control you and make sure that your stories are factual and that your emotions aren't attached to those things as well without, or you can express them, but being sure to make sure that what you bringing is factual in your own perspective and that you're not creating things or bringing in other evidence that can't be supported. In chapter 7. You're so quiet, Ellie.
So I'm just
Chapter
going to let you
7.
go through and say,
Okay, so
I will
state
address it
my
later.
state my path. Um, okay, well, in this one, they're just talking about another thing called state. And so that's SATTE. Oh, you should know that, and you're American. So that is share your facts, stick to the truth. T, tell your story, explain what you're thinking from your perspective. Ask for others' paths, encourage others to share. Talk tentatively. Don't force your story or act as if you're right. And the last part is encourage testing. Make it safe for others to tell their story and give their opinion. So again, that's state. That's for paths forward. I thought that was a really interesting chapter. Those things are perfectly legitimate in the fact that you're allowing others to voice their opinions and coming in with the ability to listen to others and to be encouraging for others to have their opinion shared.
Right.
Okay.
So all of these are like this crib and master your my story and state my path. These are all the ideas behind how you're supposed to prepare to go into a crucial conversation so that it is successful, I guess, which again, we'll talk about that later. So these are the different strategies as you read each
Right,
chapter, right?
right. So chapter 8 talks about exploring others' paths. And again, it's still the same kind of thing. Listen to others, be curious, care about others, respect others, help others think, help them be able to express their opinions, be able to express what they're feeling and needing. Looking for common ground and deciding whether or not something is a trivial matter or not. Focus on the real problems. I think that's sort of the basis for that chapter. And that again is good, trying to pare down what exactly you are trying to solve or the challenge you're trying to bring forward, making sure that it's something that is able to be articulated and understood. So it's not a massive big thing that you're coming in with, but something that is, this is what's happening and it's in very plain language for everyone. Now we're going to move on to chapter 9, move to action. So once you've had the conversations, sort of what do you do that is discussed in this one? Sometimes at the end of the conversation, you're going to have to make a decision. And it just talks about some of the things that are a little bit more difficult with a lot of people, like consensus, trying to get everyone to agree can be something that's not easy to do. And you're going to have to, when you go in, think about how this is all going to work out as well and what kind of end you want. And the end is to maintain relationship and maintain respect for each other. documentation of your work, holding people accountable by writing a summary of the action and deadlines. So that's something else the book talks about as far as what portion will everybody have in the discussion and how will those actionable items go out. So if you've decided to say you had a challenge at work and you needed to make something a little bit easier to understand, so or procedure to make it easier to understand, then everybody would have a role in how that perhaps that actionable item moves along. And deadlines, having an accountability and goals. So I think in the workplace that's interesting. And also even in your own family, that can be something as well. I think we spoke before about the child that didn't want to move out, but sort of what sort of things could be put in place and then what time would they have for that deadline for them to move out, those sort of things. But then we get to this very interesting chapter, and this I think is where Ellie will sort of take things away here. This is the chapter 10, and it's called Yeah, But. And what do we do in the tough situations? And so, Ellie, I know you have something to say.
Yeah, actually, before we get to the tough
Okay.
situations, there's a number of things. So,
Okay.
as I was listening to this, because I didn't read it, some of the thoughts that came to my mind was one, yes, it was like these people were taking the golden rule and writing chapter after chapter. They did have these strategies they developed for having these crucial conversations, and they spent a lot of time telling you why you needed to get these skills that they were sharing with you and making you all these promises, right? And
Right.
then you get to chapter 10 where it's, but yeah, but, which is when you have these tough situations, how their strategies still work. But my problem with it from the beginning was it's the problem that we have in the church on the same principles is that when you tell people to believe the best, we're called as Christians, yeah, of course, you're going to believe the best about people, right? And you're going to go in and you're going to try and make it this win-win situation. I mean, these are all, you can't argue against them, but it's not all of Scripture because all of Scripture, you know that there are wicked people, there are sinful people, there are proud people, there are people who are only out for themselves. And by the way, this book, it seems like it's mostly focused on working in the corporate world, but it tells you this can be work with your partner and with your children in all kinds of situations where you have to have crucial conversations.
Right.
And I would say, I don't know who these people are, but one of the things is none of them are therapists.
Right.
And they're giving this information, they're giving some things that are dangerous, again, that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But it's my belief there are two types of people. There are the more aggressive, dominant people, and there are the more passive, I want to please people and be friends with everybody people. I don't want anybody to be mad at me. And both of those people, what they need to do in situations are opposite. So when you're giving this information that they're giving, that everybody's going to act this way and do these things, it's not accurate because everybody's not the same. The way they look at things, the way they behave is different. And what happens, and I see this in the church, is that somebody comes to the church and they're the more I'm going to suffer like Christ, I'm going to be meek and mild, I'm always going to be the one that gives in because I think that's how Jesus was. And the church just tells them to do that. And then the people that control, and we're seeing it now in the unbelievable corruption that's coming out of church leaders and ministry leaders who have used and abused people for years and years and years and nobody knows about it. Nothing comes out because the little people don't want to say anything or they confronted, but nobody hears about it. And because they wanted to believe the best. And this is the same thing in this situation is that they keep making it so that, yeah, if everybody just followed these principles, then somehow it's going to work out. But no, what happens is certain kinds of people, the more passive people, get taken advantage of. The reality is we're all sinners. So why are we trying to make it that everybody's a saint? That is the attitude in this book. It ends up making it that a person who feels like they have to have a crucial conversation because somebody's mistreating them at the office or in some other situation, and they got to believe the best and they got to go in and do all the stuff according to them, that person is putting themselves on the line and they're getting victim blamed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is read a paragraph from a review that was somewhat negative, and I think it's by a Christian. It's by a Dr. Matt, and again, we'll have a link in the show notes. And he says, some people are like landmines waiting to be stepped on, waiting to explode as someone steps on their emotional tripwire, hence becoming skilled, quote unquote, in speaking scripted responses, like the crucial conversation tells you, is not the ultimate answer. But superficial scripts is essentially the only answer that crucial conversations offers. So a person going in, they followed all the stuff of believing the best and getting prepared and blah, 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 that Crucial Conversations tells them to do. And they go to somebody and then they present whatever the problem is. And that person is a jerk. Or maybe they're nice to their face, but now they're going to go behind their back and do all kinds of stuff to them. And they're going to retaliate in some way, and they put all the weight of that crucial conversation on the person reading the book. And that's like this completely unfair thing. Again, I guess I just see this so often in the church of how, like in marriages, an abusive marriage, and the wife, it's all the weight of the success of that marriage is put on the wife. Did you submit? Did you say this? Did you do this? Forget that the husband doesn't respond right ever or hardly ever, and mistreats her and everything. But the fact is, it takes two. It takes two to make a marriage work, and it takes two for a successful conversation. And they're trying to make it that the advice they're giving you is you do all this stuff to make it as easy as possible for the other person, really. And sometimes the person doesn't deserve respect. Sometimes the person does a lot of terrible stuff. The other thing is no boundaries. The basically breaking down of the person's boundaries when they're going into these conversations. It's all you taking on everything. It talks about like those chapters about being safe, but they're still telling you to do unsafe things. Okay, so let's go into the most egregious point here is that, again, Janine read the book, the second edition. And Janine, if you could go ahead and read what it says in that chapter 10 on the tough questions on sexual harassment.
Okay, so this is on page 191 of Crucial Conversations, and it is the second edition. Sexual or other harassment. Yeah, but it's not like anyone's blatantly harassing me or anything, but I don't like the way I'm being treated. How can I bring it up without making enemies? The danger point. Someone is making comments or gestures that you find offensive. The person does it seldom enough, and he or she's subtle enough that you're not sure if HR or your boss can even help. What can you do? In these situations, it's easy to think that the offender has all the power. It seems as if the rules of polite society make it so that others can behave inappropriately, and you'll end up looking like you're overreacting if you bring it up. Generally speaking, a vast majority of these problems go away if they're privately, respectfully, and firmly discussed. Your biggest challenge will be the respect part. If you put up with this behavior for too long, you'll be inclined to tell a more and more potent villain story about the offender.
Okay,
This
can
will,
you stop right there? So
yeah.
right there is victim blaming.
Mm.
That if you put up with it too long, which as a Christian, we're all encouraged to do that, and you're believing the best about somebody. So when somebody does something and it's not like, even sometimes it is pretty overt, and we still try and tell ourselves, like, did that really happen? Because it's usually the people who are sincere believers do give a person time and time again a chance and an opportunity. If you put it off too long, you're inclined to tell a more potent villain story about the offender. Well, maybe they are a villain. What's like, so they're putting this guilt on the person that is being offended, right? That they're doing something to that person. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Okay. This will jack up your emotions to the point that you'll go in with guns blazing, even if only through your body language. Hmm.
But what
So,
if that person deserves it?
right, right. So, wait, yeah, exactly. And basically, it's just saying that you won't be able to control yourself, right? Well, hey, you're right. If you can't be honest about how you feel about something,
Yeah.
what is there, right? Yeah.
When are you supposed to stand up for yourself?
That's
Because
right.
a lot of times it's the opposite. So many, especially Christians and especially women, though not all women, I'm not saying all women, because there are very domineering women,
Mhm.
aggressive women, but a lot of us don't stand up for ourselves. So this is terrible advice. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay. So the solution is the next step. So tell the rest of the story. If you've tolerated the behavior for a long time before holding the conversation, own up to it. This may help you treat the individual like a reasonable, rational, and decent person, even if some of his or her behavior doesn't fit this description. Well, when you feel a measure of respect for the other person, you're ready to begin.
Okay, so right
After,
there, when you feel a measure of respect, you're ready to begin. What if there is no respect? So if you don't feel it, they've just told you how bad it is that you put it off, right? And
yeah,
then it's saying, but then wait till you feel you have a measure of respect. What if you don't? In fact, a lot of these situations, respect is declining. It's being
exactly.
obliterated.
Right.
Because
Yep.
remember, listeners, we're talking about sexual and other harassment. This is their advice on sexual and other harassment. Okay. All right,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Okay. When you feel a measure of respect for the other person, you're ready to begin. After establishing a mutual purpose for the exchange, state your path. For example, I'd like to talk to you about something that's getting in the way of my working with you. It's a tough issue to bring up, but I think it'll help us be better teammates if I do this. Is that okay?
Okay, right there. Why are you asking if that's okay?
Okay,
If
so
if
they
a
say that,
person is harassing you, okay, let's say they didn't realize it, but that's hard, I doubt it. If the person is harassing you, you don't ask if it's okay. They
mm-hmm,
have already infringed on you.
mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, they call that part of it establish mutual purpose. Okay, so
So the establishing of mutual purpose, however, that's not how it's worded. So we're reading exactly what it says
right.
in the book, and it's like, is that okay? Is
Hmm.
that okay? You're asking permission to talk about it.
Hmm.
You shouldn't ask permission. Did they ask permission for the way they treated you?
Right, right.
So
Okay.
no.
So,
And what if they say no, it's not okay. I don't want to talk about it.
right, right. Okay. When I walk into your office, sometimes your eyes move up and down my body. And when I sit next to you at a computer, sometimes you put your arm around the back of my chair. I don't know that you're aware you're doing these things. So I thought I'd bring them up because they send a message that makes me feel uncomfortable. How do you see it? And they call that state my path.
Okay, so right there, now I want to say, so I listened to the third edition, which I believe is the current edition that's out.
Right.
And they changed it a little bit. They say, when I walk into your office, frequently your eyes, instead of saying move up and down my body, now it says frequently your eyes move from my eyes downward. So they made this a change in the third edition, but they have never come out and talked about the terrible thing that they said in the second edition, which was you move, go ahead, can you repeat that part again?
Yeah,
You
I can. When I walk into your office, sometimes your eyes move up and down my body.
move, right, move up and down my body. And let's picture this in your mind, ladies. And then they put their arm around your back of your chair,
Mhm.
which is an invasion of personal space. If it's a man, even if it's a woman, unless you are good friends with her, why would somebody be doing that?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the eyes up and down your body. So they changed that because they guess they realized that was wrong, but it's like covering it up because this is very dangerous information. I mean, their advice is terrible. That should not be tolerated. But what gets worse, okay, is you go ahead and read the next part.
Okay. So if you can be respectful and private, but firm in this conversation, most problem behavior will stop. And remember, if the behavior is over the line, you shouldn't hesitate to contact HR to ensure your rights and dignity are protected.
Okay, so
So,
what they changed in that part, they said, if you can be respectful in private but firm in this conversation, most problem behavior will stop. So they said that, which is wrong. Okay, so let's just think this out. Let's say you do that. You say, okay, you're respectful and you're private. You don't tell anybody else. You don't tell HR, and that behavior stops. Now there's no record that you said this to this person. And then he may have stopped doing it with you, but maybe he's been doing it for 10 years. And maybe it's gone further because people who do this, they usually don't immediately like grab you or say something really provocative. They test,
mhm,
they groom, and then it builds up. And now this person has realized, okay, maybe they're not going to do anything to you, but now there's no record of it and they can keep doing it to other people. And they've probably done it to other people because you've handled it privately and respectfully. You should never have to go to a person who is harassing you by yourself and confront them.
right,
That should have gone to HR immediately. I don't know, even if they changed the wording a little bit in the third edition, they still are telling you to do the same thing, to handle it privately.
right,
That's terrible, horrible advice and unsafe. So,
right,
and the
right.
thing is that this is a best-selling book and is recommended by people all the time with this terribly dangerous advice. And
Mhm.
then, so what they did change in the third edition, which actually is even worse, is they say, and remember, if the behavior is over the line, the person appears intentionally sexually aggressive, you should contact HR rather than attempt a private and dangerous conversation. So only if they appear intentionally sexually aggressive.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
like, okay, these people are just like predator protectors. Just, there's just no way. Any kind of behavior, hint of it, should be reported right away. And if it's nothing, then it's nothing. But if it's something, and usually it is, then it's on the record books, right?
yeah,
Just don't keep it a secret. Look at just the church of people who are supposed to be Christians and the stuff they were doing, and everybody was keeping it a secret. And so more and more and more and more victims over decades because people kept it private. For the sake of time, we're stopping this episode here. We'll pick up next week to hear the rest of our discussion on crucial conversations. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. Please let us know about your group to add to our directory by contacting us at support@JesusPeopleSisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with a business? They've treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We would like to start a directory of JPS-friendly businesses. Let's care for one another.
Be blessed by him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of his glory, blameless and with great joy. Until next time. Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice for mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.